Among the countless ancient civilizations, no mythological system is as vast, as mysterious, or as haunting as Greek mythology. It is not merely the tale of powerful gods reigning atop Mount Olympus, but also the chronicle of uprisings, of tragic bloodlines, of curses passed down through generations, and of humanity's long journey to seek meaning amid the immense universe. In this video, we will travel from the moment the cosmos was nothing more than a boundless void, all the way to the battles that ended the age of heroes, an entire tapestry of Greek mythology, presented in its original order and fullest depth. This will not simply be a retelling, it is a passage through chaos, through the Titans, through Olympus, through the heroes and tragedies that have etched themselves into human memory for thousands of years. If you have ever wondered where it all began, why the gods behaved the way they did, and what binds all these seemingly fragmented tales into a single continuous stream, then this journey is meant for you. So relax, close your eyes, and let the story begin. And when the opening door softly closes behind us, we step into the first chapter, the most essential chapter, where nothing yet has shape, where nothing has a name, where there is no boundary between light and darkness. If all of Greek mythology is a monumental structure built over thousands of years, then this very beginning is the foundation upon which the entire edifice stands. Without it, there would be no universe, no gods, no heroes, and none of the tragedies that have haunted humanity to this very day. So let us gently step backward in time, to an age before galaxies and stars, to witness how the world began, not with thunder, but with absolute silence. In the oldest Greek tales, the beginning was not a god, nor light, nor matter, but chaos, a boundless expanse without form, without color, without limits. Chaos was not darkness, because darkness requires light to oppose it. It was not death, because death requires life as its counterpart. Chaos was what came before everything else, a paradoxical emptiness, unreal, yet the root of all existence. The Greeks did not describe chaos as a demon, nor did they sanctify it as a majestic deity. They accepted it as the primordial nature of the universe, something humankind could never see, but had to acknowledge. From chaos, the first forces emerged not through a cosmic explosion, but through a slow unveiling of principles. First came Gaia, the earth, the mother of all life, the foundation of the entire visible world. Gaia did not appear as a human or as a divine figure stepping out of the shadows. She was simply Earth itself, the essence of life, the one who nurtures, embraces, and brings forth creation. Beside Gaia came Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath even the realm of the dead, a place that would one day become the prison of the rebellious Titans. And finally appeared Eros, the binding force, the primordial attraction that allowed things to unite and multiply. This ancient Eros was not the romantic god of love we know today. The original Eros was the impulse behind creation, the principle that ensured the universe would not remain silent forever. With only these three, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros, the world already possessed the foundations of order. Gaia held the potential to give birth. Eros carried the power to bind. Tartarus provided the opposing point to establish balance. Chaos, undefined and infinite, was merely the stage upon which these forces began their movement, shaping the earliest outlines of a forming universe. From her own essence, Gaia brought forth Uranus, the vast sky stretching across the earth. There was no male creator, no act of union or sacred ritual. Uranus simply appeared as Gaia's natural continuation. Earth and sky, the two halves of the cosmos, now existed together. But Gaia did not stop there. She also gave birth to mountains and seas, the first physical structures that laid the groundwork for the world to come. When Gaia and Uranus joined, the universe entered a phase of powerful creation. From them emerged the 12 Titans, colossal beings representing the primal forces and laws of the world. Alongside the Titans came the Cyclopes, the one-eyed giants, and the Centimanes, the hundred-handed beings. Each of these generations was not merely the children of Gaia and Uranus in the human sense, but symbols of the raw, untamed forces of the early universe, wild, primordial, and difficult to control. And here, the first tragedy of Greek mythology unfolded. Uranus, terrified of his strange and monstrous offspring, imprisoned them all within Gaia, burying them in darkness. The pain Gaia felt was not merely the anguish of a mother, but the agony of the earth itself, crushed beneath the weight of the forces it had produced. Uranus's fear was not only instinct for self-preservation, but a symbol of an eternal cycle of power. The ruler fears the next generation that might overthrow him. Thus, even when the universe had only just begun to stir, Greek mythology established a profound principle: every form of power carries within it the seed of its own downfall. Uranus was no exception. The universe could not grow if the Titans remained imprisoned forever. That imbalance compelled Gaia to devise a plan of rebellion, a plan that would usher in a new era, pushing Greek mythology into a chain of conflicts that would span generations. But before stepping into the uprising led by Cronus, we must look deeper into the layers of meaning within this creation chapter, for the Greeks never told stories merely of birth, battle, rule. They told philosophy. What is chaos? It is a reminder that the world always begins in uncertainty. Not every question has a clear answer, and sometimes ambiguity itself is the birthplace of creation. Chaos also carries a human truth: to create, one must confront emptiness, uncertainty, and the fear of not knowing. Gaia, the mother of all, symbolizes life, compassion, and the ability to create without permission from any higher force. The Greeks believed life came from the earth, and everything returns to the earth when it ends. Gaia is that eternal cycle, unchanging and everlasting. Eros, not the gentle song of romantic affection, but the impulse of existence. In the age when Greek mythology was still forming, early Greek thinkers understood that creation is impossible without a binding force. Eros is the reason the earth did not remain still, the reason the sky did not drift endlessly away, the reason primal forces could merge and give birth. And above all, the conflict between Gaia and Uranus is the first archetype of Greek tragedy. The older generation tries to suppress the younger, yet that very suppression makes the future even more inevitable. When Uranus buried his children within the earth, he sowed the seeds of bitterness, rebellion, and the uprising that could no longer be avoided. This image will repeat throughout all of Greek mythology. The father fears the son. The king fears the heir. The ruler fears change. And it is this fear that brings their downfall. The opening chapter of the Greek universe is not simply a story of earth, sky, birth. It is a philosophy of power, of fear, of creation, and of the inevitability of change. The Greeks understood that the cosmos cannot remain still. If Gaia is oppressed, she will react. If the Titans are imprisoned, they will rise. If Uranus refuses change, the universe will force it upon him. And so, the Genesis chapter ends not in harmony, but in the quiet, simmering wrath within Gaia, a wrath that would call upon the youngest Titan, Cronus. In the next part, we will witness the first overthrow in the history of mythology, and understand that the birth of the Greek cosmos was not a gentle melody, but the opening movement of a series of upheavals that would shape the destinies of gods, heroes, and humankind itself. The cosmos of Greek mythology was never born in peace. It began with chaos, the boundless void. Then with Gaia, the source of all life, and soon after, the first great conflict between earth and sky, between a mother suffocating beneath her own children and a father who held absolute power. When Uranus imprisoned the Titans and their monstrous siblings deep within the earth, the universe became stifled, as if every motion had been halted, as if life itself had been locked inside a cage. And within that darkness, something more certain than light began to emerge. As long as Uranus ruled through fear, the universe could not advance. That was the moment Gaia understood that the time for resistance had come, and that destiny must be placed in the hands of the bravest among her children. Among all the offspring of Gaia and Uranus, only one answered her call, Cronus, the youngest Titan, clever, yet burning with ambition. Not because he was the most courageous, but because within him lived a fusion of simmering resentment and an insatiable hunger for power. In her pain and fury, Gaia gave Cronus a special weapon, a sickle forged from divine stone, sharp enough to sever even the sky itself. It was not merely a tool, it was a declaration, a symbol of rebellion against the old order. When Cronus took the sickle and ambushed Uranus, the universe witnessed its very first intentional act of revolt. In the darkness of night, when Uranus leaned down toward Gaia, Cronus swung the sickle and cut down his father, both literally and symbolically. The blood of Uranus fell onto the earth, giving rise to the Furies, those relentless goddesses of vengeance, the giants, colossal warriors of chaos, and the Melii, the nymphs of the ash trees. It was as if the universe itself was recording the crime, as if every drop of blood carried a consequence that would echo across generations. Yet the most remarkable event came from something else, the foam of the sea mingling with the severed flesh thrown into the waters, giving birth to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. The Greeks saw in this moment a profound truth: out of violence, beauty can emerge; out of rebellion, harmony can be born. Their mythology was never simply black or white, it lived in the tension between destruction and creation. After the uprising, Cronus ascended the throne as the new ruler of the cosmos. But this power brought no peace, not even the peace Gaia had hoped for. For before being overthrown, Uranus had spoken a curse. You too shall be dethroned by your own child. This was the first true moment of fate in Greek mythology, laying the foundation for the ceaseless cycle of father and son, power and downfall, that would repeat from the era of the Titans to the age of the Olympians. Cronus carried that curse like a shadow that never left his mind. He had triumphed, but he never felt safe. He held power, but he never trusted the future. And that fear slowly turned Cronus from liberator into tyrant. Rhea, Cronus's wife, the goddess of fertility, gave birth to the new generation of divine beings: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. And with each birth, Cronus swallowed the child whole. This was not merely brutality, it was fear in its purest form. Cronus refused to suffer his father's fate, but through the very act of consuming his children, he was repeating Uranus's mistake, crushing the future before it could grow. The Greeks told this story as a quiet warning about power. The more tightly one clings to power, the faster it slips away. Those who fear the future are the ones the future will inevitably consume. Rhea watched her children vanish one after another, swallowed in an instant. She was the goddess of motherhood, yet each newborn disappeared the very moment it arrived. Her anguish echoed the earlier torment of Gaia, and from that sorrow, a silent resolve began to form. Rhea knew she could not endure this any longer. She decided to break the cycle. Not only to save her child, but to save the universe from the suffocating stillness Cronus imposed. When her sixth child was about to be born, Zeus, Rhea fled to the island of Crete to give birth in secret. She did not present Zeus to Cronus. Instead, she wrapped the stone in swaddling cloth and handed it to her husband. Cronus, panicked and blinded by the prophecy, swallowed the stone without suspicion. And so, Zeus survived, and the universe gained its first glimmer of hope in many generations. Zeus grew up in hiding, cared for by ancient divine beings, and raised with the prophecy that one day he would free his siblings and usher in a new era. And here, we see destiny unfolding once more, a child born in darkness, destined to rise, just as the Titans once did, to overthrow the generation before him. What makes this story even more powerful is the way Cronus and Gaia mirror each other. Gaia rebelled out of love, out of the desire to help the universe grow. Cronus rebelled out of fear and ambition, and when he gained power, he repeated his father's mistakes. If Uranus had been a tyrant, Cronus became even more so. If Uranus feared change, Cronus feared it sooner and deeper. The Greeks crafted this message with astonishing subtlety: the rebel of today may become the tyrant of tomorrow if he learns nothing from the past. This chapter of mythology is both tragic and symbolic. It is not merely about a divine coup. It is about the repetition of history, about how fear builds the very cage that traps us, about how all power carries its own price. Cronus held the first great victory in his hands, but within him lay the seed of his defeat. And by swallowing his children, he signed the very sentence that Zeus would later carry out. The Greeks believed that fate was not something one could escape. Not even the gods could outrun it. The curse of Uranus stretched like a thread from one generation to the next, tightening the narrative of the cosmos like the string of a lyre before a stormy symphony. Every action, every mistake, every rebellion, each was a note in that continuing composition. In this grand tapestry, Cronus was neither wholly monstrous nor truly magnificent. He was a symbol of a universal fear that haunts all those who hold power, the fear of being replaced. That fear drove him to swallow his own children, turning him into the very figure he once despised, blinding him to the truth that the future, no matter how hard one resists, always finds a way in. At this point, the wheel of fate had begun to turn. The youngest Titan had overthrown his father, and a hidden child, Zeus, had survived to prepare for the next rebellion. Gaia had planted the seed of uprising, Rhea had watered it with courage, and the universe was bracing for the greatest transfer of power in mythic history. And just beyond this chapter, the door opens to a new age, the Titanomachy, the 10-year Great War, where Zeus, the child who survived, will stand at the center of a battle that determines the fate of the entire cosmos. But before we reach that war, remember this. Greek mythology always begins with a struggle between father and son, between the present and the future. And in that struggle, Cronus's rise is only the second chapter, one that foreshadows storms far more powerful still to come. When Cronus swallowed his own children, and the terror stretched from one Titan generation to the next, Greek mythology stepped into a fateful moment of transition. The seemingly unbreakable darkness of Cronus's power still loomed over the cosmos, but deep within the earth, where time itself seemed to fall silent, a small seed of life was quietly growing, preparing to rewrite the destiny of the gods. And it is there that our story moves into its next chapter, the awakening of Zeus and the Titanomachy, the battle that would shape the order of the entire universe. If in the previous part we witnessed a world trembling beneath the reign of Cronus, then in this part, Greek mythology begins its dramatic transformation, sparked by a child who appeared powerless yet carried within himself the flame of destiny. Zeus, the youngest son of Cronus and Rhea, not only escaped his father's devouring jaws, but was raised under a sacred veil of protection, as if the universe itself had placed its final hope in this single infant. Rhea, tormented by the anguish of losing her children, took the action later known as the First Rebellion of Motherhood. She hid Zeus on the island of Crete, letting him grow up amidst the beating drums and chanting songs of the Curetes, who masked his cries from Cronus. From that moment, Zeus was no longer merely a child in hiding, he became a symbol of survival, a living spark of resistance against the cruel fate imposed by his father. When Zeus came of age, the story shifted from quiet secrecy to a rising tide of drama. With the help of Gaia, who had grown weary of the deadly cycle of familial curses, Zeus was given a potion capable of forcing Cronus to vomit up all the children he had swallowed. The moment Cronus faltered, spitting out each immortal child, was the moment a new era ignited. Poseidon, Hades, Hestia, Demeter, and Hera returned to the light, reunited with Zeus. For the first time since they had been robbed of their very existence. And from this point forward, the Greek cosmos split into two clear factions, the Titans defending Cronus, and the younger gods rallying behind Zeus. The Titanomachy was not merely a battle between two generations of divine beings, it was a confrontation between past and future, between the stagnation of old power and the yearning to build a new order. Mount Othrys, the stronghold of the Titans, stood against Mount Olympus, where Zeus and his siblings gathered their strength. Imagine a universe where the sky tore open with thunder, the earth shuddered beneath each strike, and the seas roared in fury. That was the Titanomachy, a war that lasted 10 long years, so fierce that even time seemed to pause and watch. Knowing that the strength of the younger gods alone would not be enough, Zeus freed the Cyclopes, the one-eyed giants imprisoned for centuries. In their overwhelming gratitude, they gifted Zeus the ultimate weapon, thunderbolts, the emblem of power that would follow him for millennia. And so, the first thunder in divine history did not echo from chaos or rage, but from a god's resolve to reclaim justice and break the chains of tyranny. Poseidon was given the trident, turning the sea into a devastating force. Hades received the helm of invisibility, granting him strategic advantage in battle. These weapons not only transformed the young gods into opponents worthy of the Titans, but also represented the Cyclopes' deliberate choice, to entrust the future rather than cling to the past. Some versions of the myth recount the war lasting decades. Every clash was brutal, every wound carved deeper into the history of the cosmos. The Titans were powerful but rigid, tied to an old order built on fear and coercion. By contrast, Zeus and his siblings embodied a new order. Imperfect, yet driven by the hope of change. It was that very spirit that kept them from ever retreating, even when victory seemed impossibly far. The turning point arrived when Zeus realized that the Titan's strength lay not only in sheer power, but in the cohesion of an ancient, tightly bound generation. To counter this, he expanded the battlefield, recruiting new allies, the Centimanes, the hundred-handed giants imprisoned in the depths of Tartarus. Once freed, they became the force that would tilt the war. Each one could hurl hundreds of massive stones in a single sweeping motion, shaking the very foundations of the Titan ranks. With their arrival, the final battle struck like a colossal storm upon the age of Titans. Zeus unleashed endless bolts of lightning, Poseidon sent waves crashing up to the foothills of Othrys, and Hades tightened the shadows around every corner of the battlefield. One by one, the Titans fell, until at last Cronus, the being who had sown terror across millennia, was utterly defeated. When the war ended, the universe exhaled a long, trembling breath. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, imprisoned under the watch of the very Centimanes they had once scorned. And Zeus, the child who had narrowly escaped being swallowed, ascended the throne of Olympus, not simply as a victor, but as the architect of a new cosmic order. Zeus's victory was not merely a triumph of strength. It was a triumph of will, of a belief in the future, and of the desire to break the family curse that had festered since the days of Uranus and Cronus. The Titanomachy marked not only the end of the Titan Age, but the beginning of the Age of Olympus, the era we will continue exploring in the chapters ahead. And so, even as the dust of the Titans had barely settled, a new question emerged: would Zeus, the one who had liberated the universe from the remnants of the old world, truly create something better, or would he, too, fall into the same cycle that had doomed his father and grandfather? Those secrets await us in the next part of this expansive mythic journey. As the last echoes of thunder from the Titanomachy faded across the sky and the dust of the 10-year war finally settled, the universe felt as though it had been reborn. The fractures left behind by the age of Titans still marked the surface of the earth, yet a new sensation slowly spread. An awareness of a rising order, a sense that a new chapter was about to open. Zeus and the young gods had defeated the past, but victory was only the beginning. What mattered more was how they would build the world they had won, with blood, with strength, and with hopes unlike anything that came before. And from this point of origin, we arrive at the next stage of the journey, the formation of the Olympian dynasty and the full panorama of the gods who ruled upon the heights of the sky. If the Titanomachy had been a powerful declaration of the younger generation's capacity for change, then the Olympian era was the clearest demonstration of how Zeus and his siblings transformed victory into a foundation for a more complete universe. From the ruins left behind by the war, Zeus began to establish authority and assign roles to each god, creating a stable system of governance, something the Titans had never successfully achieved. On Mount Olympus, a peak so high it touched the clouds, Zeus set his throne. From here, he looked down upon the world below with majesty, though not with the oppressive dominance shown by his father and grandfather. Zeus sought to build a reign grounded in balance, between justice and might, between emotion and reason, between the freedom of mankind and the order of the divine. Ruling Olympus alongside Zeus were his two brothers, Poseidon and Hades, who had fought beside him throughout the Titanomachy. This historic division of power was not merely a distribution of territory, but a structural reconfiguration of the universe itself. By drawing lots, Zeus received the sky, the realm of light and thunder. Poseidon was granted dominion over the sea, a vast kingdom where power surged through every wave and every current. Hades, quiet and introspective, took the underworld, the realm where souls journeyed after departing the mortal world. Three kingdoms, three temperaments, three forces operating by their own laws yet harmonized within the order governed by Zeus. But Olympus was not defined by these three alone. Hera, both sister and wife to Zeus, became queen of the gods. She embodied marriage, family, and loyalty, but also carried within her jealousy and pride. Hera was proof that the Greek gods were far from perfect. They loved, hated, grew angry, and were wounded, just like the humans they would later create and guide. Demeter, the goddess of harvest, held a crucial role in sustaining life on Earth. She made plants rise, fields flourish, and ensured humanity had food to survive. Within the Olympian order, Demeter stood among the most powerful goddesses, setting laws that governed land and harvest. Her presence reminded all that the universe was not shaped by force alone, but also by patient nourishment. Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, rarely appeared in tales of conflict or rivalry, yet she embodied the essential foundations of domestic order and communal stability. Her sacred flame symbolized warmth, constancy, and continuity from one generation to the next. Though less dramatic, Hestia was the steady heartbeat of Olympus, the anchor returning all turmoil to calm. No portrait of Olympus would be complete without the next generation of gods. Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy, was born from Zeus's own head. As though his intellect had taken physical form. She symbolized intelligence and discipline, representing a kind of warfare shaped by strategy rather than chaos. Alongside her were Apollo and Artemis, the twin gods of light and shadow, of art and the hunt, of harmony and wildness. They enriched Olympus with a breadth of qualities that made it an icon of diversity in both power and personality. Ares, the god of violent war, burned like an uncontrollable flame, representing the darkest face of conflict. While Athena embodied strategic warfare, Ares embodied pure rage, turning battlefields into chaotic symphonies of blood and steel. Their coexistence reflected the Greeks' unique understanding of war, both fearsome and inevitable. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love, appeared like a gentle breeze among the struggles for power. Yet her beauty was not merely enchanting, it was the source of countless conflicts. Love, to the ancient Greeks, was not a purely gentle force, it was powerful, dangerous, capable of raising mortals to greatness or casting them into ruin. Hephaestus, the god of the forge, symbolized labor and creation. He crafted divine weapons and wondrous constructs that made Olympus a blend of art and craftsmanship. Meanwhile, Hermes, the clever and swift messenger, connected the three realms, heaven, earth, and the underworld. His wit and agility made him indispensable in every negotiation among the gods. The full portrait of Olympus reveals one essential truth: the Greek gods were not uniform. They encompassed every emotional spectrum, good and bad, light and shadow, mercy and fury. Their complexity made Greek mythology a vibrant, living system in which the gods possessed psychological depth akin to that of humans. This diversity ensured that Olympus functioned not merely as a seat of power, but as a microcosm of the universe itself, varied, conflict-filled, yet ultimately balanced. Thus, the Olympian era was more than a period of stability following the Titanomachy. It became the foundation for the emergence of mankind, the birth of heroes, and the unending chain of adventures to follow. The gods, each with their own domain, became the unseen architects behind every later tale. From the Trojan War to the labors of Hercules, from the tragedies of Oedipus to the trials of Perseus. Olympus was the meeting point of power and personality, of ambition and responsibility. And though the gods yearned for freedom, they themselves remained bound by forces deeper than their own will, the Moirai, the three fates. Even the highest gods were subject to a greater cosmic order, a current they could not entirely escape. Standing before this resplendent dynasty, we begin to understand one thing: the Greek universe was not a calm tableau, but a vast machine driven by countless interacting forces. Strong personalities, intertwined stories, and simmering conflicts, all shaped a system both beautiful and turbulent. And so, as Olympus reached its brightest age, another question quietly surfaced beneath the layers of history. Could this order truly endure, or would the gods' own complexities lay the groundwork for future storms? The answer will unfold in the next chapter, where the gods confront not only one another, but the depths of their own ambitions. When the Olympian order had finally settled into a steady rhythm, when the gods had divided their realms, established their laws, and shaped a new cosmic balance, a quiet question began to rise within the vastness of space: for whom would this universe exist? The young gods had overthrown the Titans to claim dominion, but did they truly wish to rule over an empty cosmos? And amid all that sky-filling power, another force, belonging neither to Titan nor Olympian, was preparing to play a decisive role in guiding the world from its primordial state into an age of consciousness. That force was Prometheus, the bearer of fire, of intellect, and of compassion, a being daring enough to stand on the threshold between gods and humanity. And so we enter our next chapter, the story of Prometheus and the origins of humankind. Prometheus was not a Titan of overwhelming might like Cronus or Oceanus. He was of Titan lineage, yet possessed a nature entirely his own: foresight, sharp reasoning, and above all, an uncommon sense of empathy. In a universe where gods were consumed by their struggles for power, Prometheus turned his attention towards something small, fragile, and not yet in existence: human beings. Legend tells that Zeus wished to create a harmonious and beautiful world, but he did not center his vision on beings capable of intellect equal to that of the gods. Prometheus, however, believing deeply in the promise of the new, quietly shaped humankind from clay. This was not an act of defiance, it was a continuation of cosmic creation. From Prometheus's own hands, the first humans emerged, formed in the likeness of the gods, yet profoundly fragile. Without claws, without wings, without strength or magic. Prometheus recognized in these new beings something the gods overlooked: curiosity, longing, and a potential that could one day surpass all others. But that potential would wither if humans lacked the one thing that could lift them above animals: fire. Fire, the symbol of civilization, of knowledge, the tool for crafting, for warmth, for piercing the darkness, was something Zeus strictly forbade. He believed humanity too young to wield such power. Zeus wanted them to live in dependence, in darkness, never rising to a level where they could threaten divine authority. But to Prometheus, fire was more than a tool. It was the embodiment of will. Without it, humans would never develop, never build culture, never form societies, and never escape the instinctive fears of the wild. And so, he resolved to do what no one else dared: steal fire from the gods' sacred reserve and deliver it into human hands. Once it touched the world of mortals, that flame became the universe's first spark of enlightenment. From there, humans learned to forge metal, to cook, to light the night, to build homes, to create tools, early steps toward the civilization they would eventually shape. To Prometheus, this confirmed that he had chosen correctly. But to Zeus, it was an unforgivable act of rebellion. Zeus was the guardian of order. Prometheus had disrupted that order. He could not allow a Titan descendant to decide the fate of humankind, especially in a way that nudged mortals closer to the divine. And so Zeus inflicted a punishment of such cruelty that even Titans and monsters seldom endured its equal. He commanded that Prometheus be bound to a desolate cliff in the Caucasus. Each day, a giant eagle, symbol of Zeus's authority, would descend and devour Prometheus's liver. Each night, the organ would grow back, and the agony would begin anew. No death, no release, only endless torment. This punishment was not meant to destroy Prometheus, but to remind all gods and mortals that Zeus alone governed the universe's laws. But the story does not end there. As Zeus punished Prometheus, he also prepared a lesson for humankind, a lesson about curiosity and consequence. And from that intent, Pandora was born. Pandora was unlike any being before her. She was crafted by Hephaestus, adorned by Aphrodite, given a sweet and persuasive voice by Hermes, and bestowed with a beauty and charm so radiant that even the gods marveled. But within that beauty lay an unquenchable curiosity, a gift, or curse, of Olympus itself. Zeus sent Pandora to the mortal world along with a jar, later mistakenly remembered as a box. He warned her not to open it. Yet Zeus, more than anyone, understood that what is forbidden is always what tempts most. When Pandora opened the jar, every misfortune spilled forth into the world: disease, war, famine, betrayal, greed, aging, sorrow. Humanity, living under the fire Prometheus had granted and moving steadily toward the light, now faced the first shadows of mortal existence. However, when Pandora hastily shut the lid, one thing remained inside: hope. Hope was not a perfect salvation, but it was the one force that kept humanity from collapsing under the weight of affliction. Fire helped them rise. Hope helped them continue, even when the path darkened beyond sight. Thus, in Greek mythology, the birth of humankind was never depicted as a gentle miracle. It was the result of conflict between wisdom and authority, compassion and control, the light of Prometheus and the shadows Zeus sought to impose. This tension shaped the very identity of humanity: fragile yet resilient, small yet filled with yearning, vulnerable yet relentless in moving forward. Prometheus's act left an indelible mark upon the cosmos. It raised questions about justice, power, and divine purpose. It planted the idea that sometimes rebellion for the sake of the weak is more righteous than obedience to the strong. And this story laid the foundation for all later myths about humankind, the journey from primal fear toward eras of civilization, from dependence on gods toward the ability to stand on their own. In the grand arc of Greek mythology, from chaos to Olympus, Prometheus is the second great turning point after the Titanomachy. If Zeus represents the establishment of order, then Prometheus represents the force that drives evolution. These two currents converge, clash, and together create the foundation upon which humanity exists. And from this moment, now that humans have appeared and faced their first lessons of freedom and consequence, the mythic tapestry shifts into its next chapter. The 5 ages of humankind, where a glorious past, a troubled present, and an uncertain future intertwine in an endless cycle. As the story of Prometheus draws to a close, with the sacred flame rising against the darkness of the cosmos, a symbol of human longing, of knowledge, of creation, and the courage to break through limitations, we step into a new and broader chapter. For humanity's journey does not begin and end with fire. It is also shaped by the vast cycles through which the gods measured our conscience, our nature, and our worth across the ages. And from here, the gateway opens into the 5 ages of humankind, leading us deeper into one of Greek mythology's most expansive conceptual frameworks, where time itself becomes a judge, and each era is a mirror reflecting both hope and decay. If Prometheus laid the very first foundation for human existence, then, the 5 ages of humankind, is the epic that encapsulates the entire arc of humanity, our rise to perfection, our decline into conflict, and our final, inescapable imperfections. It is not merely a tale of chronology, it is a profoundly human portrait, revealing how the ancient Greeks saw themselves, full of potential yet riddled with contradictions, strong and proud yet easily undone by desire and power. According to Hesiod, one of the towering figures of ancient Greek literature, human history unfolds across 5 successive ages, each serving as a measure of mankind's virtue, capacity, and moral character. Unlike many cultures that imagine history as a path of steady ascent, the Greeks envisioned it moving downward. As time progresses, humanity drifts further from the perfection it once possessed. And yet, within that decline, they understood themselves more deeply than ever. The Golden Age, the era of perfection. Every journey begins with a radiance, and for Greek humanity, that radiance is the Golden Age. This was a time without war, without hunger, without rivalry. People lived in harmony, with no need for laws or rulers, because everyone acted rightly without being compelled. The world glowed with an inherent light, the earth offered its fruits freely, and the gods lived close enough to be gentle neighbors rather than distant powers. This era was presided over by Cronus, the benevolent Titan king who maintained peace and equilibrium across the cosmos. Under his rule, humanity lived in what felt like the Greek counterpart to the Garden of Eden, untouched by illness, unburdened by labor, and unafraid of death, for when their lives ended, they simply drifted into a soft sleep and became guardian spirits. The Greeks looked back on this age with deep longing, a beautiful dream that humanity forfeited forever. It reflects a timeless yearning for a perfect society, serene, virtuous, and free from fear. The Silver Age, the era of disobedience. But nothing perfect lasts. When Zeus overthrew Cronus and established a new order, the Silver Age began, and the world entered its first decline. Humanity in this age still possessed great stature and long life, yet their hearts grew childish, stubborn, and increasingly lacking in wisdom. They no longer respected the gods, refused to follow divine laws, and sowed chaos wherever they went. Their insolence enraged Zeus, who ultimately condemned them to extinction. If the Golden Age ended with peaceful slumber, the Silver Age ended in the wrath of the heavens, a reminder that ingratitude and defiance can shatter even the most resilient civilization. The Bronze Age, the era of war. When Zeus's fury faded, a new generation arose, stronger, harder, but also more brutal. The humans of the Bronze Age were said to possess bodies forged of bronze and souls weighed down by the very metal that defined them. They lived for conflict. Their days were spent in ceaseless violence, and they revered war as the highest purpose of life. Friendship became rare, compassion vanished entirely, only domination and raw physical power mattered. In the end, their own savagery erased them. A testament to how a society overwhelmed by aggression destroys itself without divine intervention. The heroic age, the brightest era. Curiously, after 3 consecutive declines, Hesiod tells us that humanity suddenly improved. The heroic age is the lone exception in the downward path of history. This was the age of Achilles, Hercules, Perseus, and Jason, names every Greek knew by heart. It was an era when humans were not perfect, but extraordinary. They fought not only for vengeance, but also for honor, justice, and ideals. Great conflicts like the Trojan War and the voyage of the Argonauts left behind an immense cultural legacy, echoing humanity's longing to transcend fate. People of this age could die, but their deaths were noble. Their souls were sent to the Isles of the Blessed, where they lived eternally in glory. The Iron Age, our age. Finally, Hesiod brings us to the Iron Age, and he states without hesitation that this is the age of the current human world, a time of relentless labor, unending strife, moral decay, and the hardening of the human heart. People must toil ceaselessly to survive. Society fractures beneath ambition and conflict, trust gives way to calculation. It is a bleak portrait, but also a realistic one. It reflects not only the ancient Greeks' pessimism but also a warning. If humanity cannot preserve its moral core, we may pave our own path toward destruction, as past ages already have. The 5 ages of humankind is not merely a mythical chronology, it is a philosophical allegory. It poses a profound question: who are we with? Out the guidance of the gods. Will we choose to be those of the Golden Age, living in virtue, respect, and harmony, or will we descend into the Iron Age's shadows, consumed by desire and conflict? This is what makes this chapter one of the most deeply human elements in all Greek mythology. It is not about the gods, it is about us, the people standing at the final stage of history, holding in our hands the power to decide whether humanity will continue to fade, or rediscover the golden light our earliest ancestors once knew. As the tale of the 5 ages of humanity draws to a close, we begin to see that history is not written only through cycles of rise and decline, but also through the imprint of those who dared to challenge destiny. From the brilliance of the Golden Age to the harshness of the Iron Age, every era requires individuals who can rise from the shadows, proving that no matter how the world changes, the human spirit can still ignite. And at the very threshold where decay meets hope, a figure emerges, one who opens the era the Greeks would forever revere, the Age of Heroes. It is here that the story leads us to Perseus, the hero who opened the Age of Heroes, the first to lay the foundation for the most radiant heroic tradition in all of Greek mythology. If the 5 ages of humanity serve as the framework for understanding the grand picture of human development and decline, then Perseus stands as living proof that humanity can rise beyond the limits of its own age. Perseus is not merely a hero of myth, he is a symbol of beginnings, the first glimmer of light tearing through the darkness to herald a brilliant era that would later give birth to Achilles, Hercules, Jason, Odysseus, and countless other immortal legends. But what makes Perseus truly different is not only his remarkable feats, but the way his story shows that a mortal, despite the frailty of human blood, can stand alongside the gods, as long as he possesses courage, resolve, and unwavering faith in himself. Origins of a curse and a destiny. Perseus was born of a prophecy, and like all Greek prophecies, it was the seed of tragedy. King Achilles of Argos was told that his grandson would kill him. Terrified, he locked his daughter Danae inside a fortified bronze chamber, believing he could outmaneuver fate. But he forgot one crucial truth: no one can obstruct the will of the gods. Zeus, captivated by Danae, transformed himself into a golden shower, slipped through the prison walls, and granted her a child. That child was Perseus. Hoping to escape the prophecy, Achilles did not kill them but cast mother and son into the sea inside a wooden chest. Yet the sea, long a companion to heroes, did not abandon them. The chest drifted to the island of Seriphos, where they were rescued by Dictys, a kind-hearted fisherman. From the very beginning, Perseus' life was steeped in adversity. Abandoned, threatened by prophecy, born not for peaceful living but for trials far beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. Here, mythology delivers a familiar message: heroes are not chosen, they are forged by suffering and challenge. The fateful trial, the head of Medusa. Polydectes, the king of Seriphos and Dictys' brother, secretly desired Danae. To rid himself of Perseus, he assigned the young man an impossible task: bring back the head of Medusa. This was a demand as good as a death sentence, for Medusa was one of the three Gorgon sisters, creatures with serpentine hair, monstrous faces, and eyes that could turn any living being to stone. But the journey Perseus was about to undertake was not one he would walk alone. This is one of the most beautiful aspects of Greek mythology: when a mortal dares to confront the impossible, the gods extend their hands. Athena gifted him a reflective shield, Hermes gave him a razor-sharp divine sword, Hades provided the helm of invisibility, and other deities offered winged sandals and a special pouch to carry Medusa's head. Perseus represents not only courage, but the power of intellect, a quality Athena especially cherishes. He did not defeat Medusa through brute strength, but by strategy. Using the mirrored shield to avoid her petrifying gaze, he approached quietly as she slept, and struck in a single decisive moment. It is one of the most iconic scenes in all of Greek mythology, the moment when a mortal, small against gods and monsters, prevails through wit and resolve. The hero-making event, saving Andromeda. On his journey home, Perseus encountered one of the most enduring images of the hero's tradition. Andromeda chained upon a cliff, offered as sacrifice to the sea monster Cetus to save her parents' kingdom. Without hesitation, Perseus confronted the monster, using Medusa's head as his ultimate weapon to turn Cetus to stone and free Andromeda. This was not merely a heroic deed, it was a declaration: a hero does not fight only for commands, but for righteousness, for those who need protection. Perseus and Andromeda became symbols of love born from adversity, of bravery intertwined with compassion, qualities that shaped Perseus into the archetype later heroes would emulate. The fulfillment of the prophecy. Perseus' story ends with a twist steeped in Greek fatalism: no matter how one avoids it, a prophecy will find its way. Perseus accidentally killed Achilles during a discus-throwing contest, not out of malice, but through pure misfortune. Greek mythology often ends its tales this way to remind us that fate is a thread running through all things, inescapable, only endurable. Yet what matters more is the legacy he left behind. Perseus was not merely the one who fulfilled a prophecy, he was the one who set in motion a tradition that would span generations, the heroic tradition. His descendants were among the greatest figures in Greek mythology, including Hercules, the mightiest of all heroes. The legacy of the trailblazing hero. Perseus is the prototype of the Greek hero, strong, intelligent, humble, and able to balance divine assistance with personal effort. Zeus guided him, Athena taught him, Hermes supported him, yet Perseus' victories were earned through his own determination and bravery. His story reflects a core philosophy: Heroes are born at the intersection of mortals and gods, but their achievements belong solely to them. The gods may open the door, but only humans can walk through it. Most importantly, Perseus established the cultural foundation for the idea of the hero, a person willing to trade their own safety for the peace of others. This ideal inspired generations of Greeks, convincing them that anyone, no matter their origins or the hardships of their fate, could rise to accomplish greatness. Perseus did not merely begin the age of heroes, he began a new way of thinking about humanity. Showing that we are not imprisoned by weakness, but always capable of breaking through the boundaries of destiny. His story stands as proof that even in the darkest Iron Age, there are always those who dare to rise, dare to fight, dare to love, and dare to follow their chosen path to its very end. And from the first light Perseus ignited, a radiant age of heroes began. An age that would soon welcome figures even more extraordinary, those who continued to prove that the greatest power in all the world does not belong to the gods, but to the human heart. When the journey of Perseus comes to an end, we feel one truth with striking clarity: the age of heroes was not opened solely by intellect or courage, but by the affirmation that humanity, despite its limits, can reach the stature of the divine. Yet the light Perseus ignited was only the first torch. Behind him stood other heroes waiting for their moment, carrying stories far more violent, immense, and haunting. And among all those names, there was one whose tragic fate was so relentless that even Olympus had to bow its head: Hercules, the supreme symbol of strength, and also the clearest testament that when strength is bound to suffering, it can plunge an entire life into an inescapable spiral of pain. If Perseus was the dawn of the heroic age, then Hercules was its blazing sun. Radiant, powerful, ferocious, yet burning so intensely that he scorched himself in the process. No Greek figure was ever honored to the point of divinization while simultaneously enduring such unbearable agony. He embodied a grand paradox: the mightiest of all was also the loneliest. Born of jealousy and a fate split in two. Heracles, also known as Heracles, the glory of Hera, carried irony and destiny within his very name. Despite being called Hera's glory, he was the child of Zeus and Alcmene, a mortal woman Zeus deeply desired. Hera, who never tolerated Zeus's illegitimate offspring, despised Heracles before he even drew his first breath. Throughout every story of Heracles' infancy, Hera lurked as a shadow. She sent serpents to kill him while he was still in the cradle, but the infant strangled them both with his tiny hands. It was the first sign that he was no ordinary child. It was also a warning. His life would never know peace. Extraordinary strength does not equal freedom. Heracles' power was so immense that he could not fit into the world around him. His tutors, masters of music, combat, and archery, were terrified of the boy whose strength constantly exceeded human limits. This became the foundation of his lifelong tragedy. Heracles was never allowed to be just a man. He was a hero when others needed one, a tool when kings demanded it, and a danger when his strength slipped beyond control. The Greeks understood well that strength is the finest gift the gods can grant, but also the heaviest curse when not guided carefully. The ultimate tragedy, destroyed by his own hands. Heracles married Megara, the woman he loved deeply, and they had beautiful children together. For a brief moment, in a life storm tossed from the start, happiness seemed within reach. But Hera would not allow that light to endure. She cast a divine madness upon Heracles, twisting his vision until he saw his wife and children as enemies. In his frenzy, he killed them all. It was the moment that shattered entirely the image of the invincible hero, exposing a painful truth: no strength is great enough to shield a person from the suffering that destiny can inflict. When the madness faded, Heracles awoke to the horror he had wrought. He collapsed in grief, and from that moment, his story transformed. from the tale of the strongest man alive to the journey of a condemned soul seeking redemption. If Perseus embodied the path to glory, then Hercules embodied the path through anguish, and that is what makes him the most deeply human of all Greek heroes. The 12 Labors, a journey of redemption and mastery over fate. To cleanse his sins, Heracles was forced to serve Eurystheus, a cowardly, scheming king who seized the chance to burden Heracles with impossible tasks. Thus began the 12 Labors, one of the most influential and enduring sequences in all of Greek mythology. Each labor was not merely a feat of strength, it was a metaphor for the layers of the human psyche. The Nemean lion, confronting a fear that no weapon can pierce. The Ceryneian hind, patience and endurance stretched across time. The Erymanthian boar, mastering chaos and rage. The Hydra, battling wounds that multiply each time we touch them. The Augean stables, cleansing the accumulated wreckage of life. The Stymphalian birds, dispelling the persistent anxieties that strength alone cannot defeat. The bull of Minos, the horses of Diomedes, Hippolyta's girdle, Gereon's cattle, the golden apples of the Hesperides, Cerberus, each one a new stage in redemption, discipline, and the conquest of the darkness within. The Greeks preserved these stories not to glorify violence, but to imprint a truth: we become our best selves only when we confront the hardest trials life sends our way. Heracles, hero, victim, and ultimately a god. Yet redemption did not end the torment of fate. Heracles endured betrayal, manipulation, and endless conflicts that were never truly his own. His death was the peak of his suffering, not in battle, but through the pain inflicted by someone he loved. Deianira, his second wife, was deceived into believing that Nessus's blood would ensure Heracles' eternal love. She unknowingly smeared the deadly substance onto his robe. When Heracles wore it, his skin was burned alive by excruciating agony. But instead of hatred, Heracles chose acceptance. He built his own funeral pyre and stepped into the flames, without fear, without resistance. The moment he was taken up to Olympus and granted immortality marked the close of a life forged in blood, tears, and triumph. It was an acknowledgement that despite the cruelty of fate, Heracles rose above it with the dignity of a true hero. The tragedy of strength, and a message for humanity. Heracles is one of the least idealized figures in Greek mythology, and this is precisely why he feels so close to us. He made mistakes, lost control, suffered, regretted. Yet he stood up, fought on, and continued his journey. His strength did not lie in his muscles, but in his ability to rise after every fall. He teaches humanity a profound lesson: true strength is not never being wrong, but having the courage to face what we have done. If Perseus was the beginning of the heroic age, then Heracles was its peak, brilliant and cold, glorious and agonizing. And from this most intense of stories, mythology will lead us onward to other heroes, those who carry forward the legacy of strength and tragedy, in a journey that draws Greek myth ever closer to the age that ends everything with its greatest conflict, the Trojan War. When the tale of Heracles comes to a close, we can almost still hear the heavy echo of a hero's weary breath, one who had carried burdens far beyond what a mortal body should endure. Yet from within that solemn afterglow, Greek mythology opens a new turning point, a journey that speaks not only of strength or atonement, but also of reason, of political order, and of the stature of a human being who dares to step into a labyrinth of chaos in search of answers for an entire community. And the name that embodies this path is Theseus, the hero of the polis, the symbol of intellect, law, and the subtle but powerful transformation of Greek civilization. If Heracles represents metaphysical strength, those battles where instinct and destiny collide with violent force, then Theseus steps onto the stage as a different presence, calm, rational, and far closer to the world of men. He is not someone blessed by absolute divine miracles, He rises through cleverness, through sharp discernment, and above all, through an understanding of what society truly needs. Theseus is not merely a hero of exploits. He is a founder of political thought, of statecraft, of the ideals of citizenship in the ancient Greek world. From his earliest youth, his path was already unlike any other. When he set out to find his father, the Athenian king Aegeus, it was not simply a quest for bloodline, but the first step of a journey that moved from the individual toward the collective. Each enemy he defeated along the way, from Periphetes to Procrustes, was more than an ordinary challenge. They represented forms of anarchic violence that plagued the Greek world. Theseus did not fight to prove his strength, he fought to clear the roads, to restore order, to establish the standards a civilized society must uphold. This is the defining difference between him and Hercules, where Hercules used strength as his tool, Theseus used reason, law, and the will to build. But the moment that made Theseus a legend, the moment that placed him among the symbolic founders of Greek political thought, was the story of the Minotaur, the Labyrinth, and Athens. In those dark years, Athens was forced to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete as a tribute, a humiliating payment born from past defeat. Symbolically, the Minotaur was never just a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull. It was the embodiment of fear, of oppression, of the cyclical suffering a people must endure when they are too weak to stand for themselves. And the labyrinth was not merely an architectural marvel created by Daedalus, it was the image of a refined system of control, a structure designed to keep people lost with no hope of escape. Yet Theseus, without hesitation, volunteered to enter the labyrinth. This was not only an act of bravery. It was a declaration that Athens would bow no longer, that the time had come to break the mold of a city living in quiet humiliation. When Theseus slew the Minotaur, it was the moment Athens reclaimed its dignity. But what made the act even greater was Ariadne, the one who placed the red thread in his hands. And from this, we understand that Theseus triumphed not through luck or brute force, but through his ability to listen, to collaborate, to transform the wisdom of others into his own strength. The red thread, the guiding line, is the symbol of enlightenment. To escape the labyrinth of society, of politics, of power, one needs direction, thought, and method. Without Ariadne, Theseus would have been a brave warrior forever lost. Without intellect, humanity becomes prey to the labyrinths of its own era. This is what makes Theseus the ideal model of leadership, the ability to leverage collective intelligence to liberate the community. When Theseus returned to Athens, he did not stop at the glory of being a hero. What he brought back was far more important. He restructured the city-state, unifying the smaller communities, the Cenoicism, forming Athens into a cohesive political and cultural center. Once again, we see Theseus standing at the intersection of hero and statesman. Hercules may reshape the world with his mighty hands, but Theseus reshapes Athens through administrative vision, through organizational skill, through a philosophy of unity. It is important to note that Theseus was not perfect. Mythology shows him stumbling, hesitating, and even making choices for which he was condemned. Such as abandoning Ariadne on Naxos, or the manner in which he handled his relationship with Hippolytus. But this, in turn, makes him more human. Theseus is proof that even the finest leaders err, and that greatness does not arise from flawlessness, but from the ability to rise after ruin, continuing the work of building community with whatever strength remains. In a broader lens, Theseus represents a shift in Greek thinking. From the celebration of extraordinary individuals to a recognition of the value of the collective, of political systems, of stable social structures. If Heracles belongs to the era where heroes carried the world alone, Theseus belongs to the era where people understood that a better world emerges only when the community rises together. His death, though quieter than that of many other heroes, leaves behind a legacy far greater. A powerful Athens, a model of political leadership, a symbol of the intellectual maturation of Greek culture. And although his stories are less drenched in the supernatural than others, the Greeks saw him as the spiritual ancestor of the city, someone who did not merely accomplish heroic feats, but laid the very foundations of civic life. When we follow the journey of Theseus, we discover that sometimes what defines a hero is not absolute power nor dazzling victories, but the ability to perceive the needs of one's era. In a world of turmoil, where people are swallowed by labyrinths of fear, uncertainty, and social pressure, a figure like Theseus appears to guide the way, with intellect, with courage, and with faith in a future shaped by order and hope. And from here, Greek mythology opens the door to new stories, where heroes confront not only monsters, but also the structures of authority, ethics, and choices of their communities. Theseus is a turning point, a bridge, a reminder that the hero's path is never merely the path of one person, but the path of an entire civilization growing stronger with each step forward. As the figure of Theseus fades, leaving behind a stronger and more mature Athens, we can almost feel Greek mythology shifting into a broader era. An era where conflicts no longer revolve solely around individuals or a single city-state, but begin to spread across the Mediterranean. If the journey of Hercules is an epic of strength, and Theseus a lesson in politics and civic order, then the next chapter opens like a powerful wind, carrying with it endless voyages, collapsing dynasties, ominous prophecies, and the earliest seeds of the greatest war in all mythology, the Trojan War. And it is here that Jason, the Argonauts, and the House of Thebes step onto the stage as central figures of this transitional age. Greek mythology has never been a chain of isolated events. Every character, every city, every tragedy is a piece of a vast mosaic, one that turned oral stories into the collective memory of a civilization. Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece is one such piece. Not only radiant with heroism, but marking the emergence of an entirely new generation of heroes, where strength, intelligence, courage, and even human flaws intertwine into a single, perilous journey. From the beginning, Jason's story carries a distinctly political tone. The kingdom of Iolcus was usurped. Jason was sent away as a child, raised under the protection of Chiron the centaur, like a seed planted for the future. When Jason finally appeared before the throne that rightfully belonged to him, he came not with force, but with the quiet confidence of someone who holds justice on his side. And from that moment, a new tragedy began to take shape. To reclaim what was his, Jason had to face an impossible challenge: retrieve the Golden Fleece from distant Colchis. The voyage was never meant for Jason alone. It gathered together the greatest heroes of Greece at the time. Orpheus, whose music could soothe even the stones; Atalanta, an unmatched warrior; Hercules, just before his long path of atonement; Castor and Pollux, the immortal twins; and dozens of other champions. The Argo was not just a ship, it was a symbol of unity, of strength drawn from every corner of Greece, a testament to a new era where heroes had to join forces to overcome trials far beyond the limits of any single individual. If Theseus was the hero of the city-state, Jason and the Argonauts were heroes of a united Greece, one that dared to dream past its own shores. Their journey was filled with enchantments, dangers, and extraordinary encounters, from the vicious Stymphalian birds, to the clashing rocks, to mysterious islands where humans and spirits intertwined. But the greatest highlight, and deepest wound, was Jason's fateful love with Medea. Medea, princess of Colchis, gifted with the magic of Hecate, gave Jason not only the power to survive, but her heart and her future. She helped him seize the Golden Fleece, betrayed her own family, and even killed her brother to ensure their escape. It was a love so absolute that it became the spark for all the tragedies that followed. Jason returned with the Golden Fleece, but glory never arrives softly. Political tension, the greed of rulers, and the clash between justice and power spiraled into irreversible disaster. When Jason abandoned Medea to marry the princess of Corinth for political gain, Medea, who had sacrificed everything, became a storm of ruin. She killed Jason's new bride, murdered her own children, and fled, leaving Jason shattered. In the end, Jason died a bitter, ironic death, crushed by the collapsing Argo, the very ship that once carried him to glory. This tragedy reveals a harsh truth: the age of heroes shines not only with brilliance, but also with the ruin of human hearts, politics, and betrayal. Jason was not a flawless figure, and that is precisely what makes his story a mirror reflecting the fragility of glory, showing that no one, not even heroes, can escape the consequences of ambition and selfishness. Meanwhile, the land of Thebes witnessed its own chain of tragedies. Ones that cut deeper into psychology, fate, and the curse of an entire bloodline. The house of Thebes, from Laius to Oedipus to Polynices and Idiocles, endured disaster after disaster. If Jason's tale reveals the fragility of glory, then Thebes reveals the cruelty of destiny. The story of Oedipus, killing his father, marrying his mother, and then destroying himself, is proof that even when humans try to flee their fate, it always finds its way back. Thebes became a symbol of moral collapse, of the struggle between family and power, between blood and duty. After Oedipus, the war between his sons, Idiocles and Polynices, drenched Thebes in blood once more. The two brothers, who should have ruled together, turned into mortal enemies in their battle for the throne. This is where family tragedy collides with political ambition, a reminder that when trust collapses, even a great city can destroy itself from within. This conflict, along with the heroes who marched on Thebes, laid the groundwork for the next generation of legendary warriors. And from here, the threads of fate begin to weave together, leading directly to the omen of the greatest war of all, the Trojan War. The shattered families of Thebes, the heroes returning disillusioned from Jason's voyage, the betrayals, the unfulfilled oaths, the unresolved rivalries. All of them form gathering clouds, pressing together, preparing to erupt into the greatest storm in the history of Greece. We see Hercules, Theseus, Jason, Oedipus, each leaving behind a wound in the fabric of mythology. But it is these scars that shape the new generation of heroes: Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, men who would step onto the plains of Troy carrying the brilliance and the burdens of all who came before. The Golden Fleece, the curse of Thebes, the voyage of the Argo, the battles for power, these are not separate tales. They are the quiet undercurrents leading Greece toward its ultimate conflagration, toward the clash between civilizations, honor, vengeance, glory, and death at Troy. Viewed as a whole, Part 10 is not merely a collection of separate stories. It is a pivotal era. One in which heroes collide with larger political forces, where personal ambition shapes the fate of entire regions, where the destiny of families becomes the destiny of a civilization. And from the echoes of Jason, from the cries of Medea, from the blood spilled in Thebes, Greek mythology steps directly into its greatest age of tragedy and heroism, the era of Troy. And so, as the long journey through the whole of Greek mythology comes to an end, we realize that these are not merely ancient tales retold across thousands of years, but a mirror reflecting the essence of humanity itself, our desires, our fears, our ambitions, our love, our betrayals, and the questions that have never truly found an answer. From the primordial chaos to the gods upon Mount Olympus, from lonely heroes to wars that shook an entire age. Every part of Greek mythology reveals a single truth: no matter the era, we are all searching for meaning in a world far larger and more mysterious than we imagine. If you feel that something still remains untold, it is because Greek mythology has no real ending. There is always another doorway, another name, another mystery waiting to be uncovered. And that is the journey this channel will continue to share with you. Gentle stories for sleep, carrying within them the living breath of ancient ages. So please subscribe, and in the nights to come, we will continue to travel together through other tales, deeper, stranger, and even more enchanting. I will see you on the next journey.